Chapter 23: Quality Deterioration, the Visible Surface of Hidden Decline. Quality deterioration is the first stage of decline that ordinary citizens can observe directly. It is the external symptom of internal decay. Demographic inversion, capability thinning, institutional overload, and elite overproduction remain abstract until they manifest as delayed services, broken infrastructure, declining craftsmanship, and inconsistent execution. The system still exists on paper, but its outputs degrade. Quality deterioration is not random failure, it is the mechanical consequence of a shrinking capability base operating a system whose complexity has not been reduced. Every complex institution relies on thousands of micro-tasks that must be executed correctly and consistently, a dosage checked, a form transcribed accurately, a bolt torqued to specification, a structural joint inspected, a student corrected, a vulnerability patched. These tasks depend on judgment, discipline, and attention. When capability density is high, such tasks are performed correctly by default. When capability density declines, the probability of error increases everywhere simultaneously. Decline begins not with catastrophic failure but with rising error frequency distributed across the entire system. Quality deterioration initially remains invisible because it emerges inside intermediate layers. Universities lower admission standards to sustain enrollments. The consequences appear years later when undertrained graduates enter institutions as low-capability operators. Government agencies hire weaker staff to meet quotas or fill vacancies. The immediate effect is mild delay, but over time misfilings, inconsistent enforcement, and rising error rates accumulate. Hospitals retain underperforming nurses due to shortages. Quality degrades through minor complications, growing documentation errors, and slower throughput. Early-stage deterioration looks like isolated mistakes, but it is structural drift. Quality becomes visible when the accumulation of microfailures exceeds the compensatory capacity of legacy competence. Infrastructure deteriorates faster than maintenance regimes can sustain. Roads crack, bridges corrode, utilities leak, signaling systems degrade. Citizens attribute this to lack of funding, but funding cannot compensate for insufficient capability. Materials can be purchased, but skill cannot be conjured. Education presents a similar pattern. Teachers confronted with behavioral complexity, paperwork, and declining student baselines shift from instruction to management. Standards fall because maintaining throughput becomes a survival strategy. Grade inflation replaces mastery. The median student of today lacks the competencies the median student of 2 generations earlier routinely possessed. This does not reflect cultural change, it reflects capability contraction. Healthcare declines through precision erosion. Tasks once executed reliably, triage classification, dosage calculation, sterile preparation, record keeping, become more error-prone. Administrators respond by expanding protocol layers to compensate for shrinking competence, which increases cognitive load and reduces clinical bandwidth. Thus emerges the quality decline spiral. Capability loss, procedural expansion, overload, further capability loss, visible deterioration. Craftsmanship also erodes. Products become less durable. Buildings require more repairs. Software contains more bugs. Customer service becomes formulaic because frontline staff cannot deviate from scripts. Citizens interpret this as declining pride or cultural decay, but the cause is mechanical. High-capability societies generate high-quality outputs. Low-capability societies do not. Air travel illustrates this dynamic. Earlier systems relied on high-competence pilots, rigorous maintenance, and disciplined procedures. As capability thins, airlines compensate with automation, outsourcing, and procedural scaffolding. The statistical safety record persists, but resilience collapses, delays rise, service reliability declines, and operational margins narrow. The system functions, but with growing fragility. Software demonstrates the same pattern. Complexity expanded faster than capability. Early programmers had deep mathematical grounding. Modern developers often rely on abstractions designed to shield them from complexity they cannot manage. This compensates temporarily but accumulates hidden fragility. Codebases bloat, security vulnerabilities proliferate, and quality becomes inconsistent. Public administration reveals quality deterioration most directly. Lost documents, contradictory instructions, misapplied rules, inconsistent decisions. These are not isolated failures but evidence that capability density has fallen below the threshold required to operate a modern bureaucracy. The administrative state becomes slower and more error-prone precisely as its procedural load increases. Law enforcement experiences the same dynamic. Cultural heterogeneity, legal complexity, and bureaucratic oversight raise cognitive load. Recruitment standards decline, experienced officers retire, and tacit knowledge evaporates. Younger officers operate via scripts rather than judgment. The result is inconsistent enforcement and slower response at the exact moment institutional complexity requires higher competence. Corruption increases as quality declines. Oversight weakens because institutions lack the capability to detect or deter misconduct. Loopholes widen through accumulated procedural complexity. Corruption appears first among mid-tier operators as adaptive behavior in overloaded systems. Once embedded, it spreads structurally. The most subtle form of quality deterioration is cognitive. As aggregate capability declines, the information environment simplifies. Media becomes shallow, political rhetoric polarizes, and complex issues collapse into slogans. This is not cultural degradation. It is functional adaptation to declining median capability. A civilization's intellectual output matches its skill distribution. Quality deterioration forms a self-reinforcing loop. Falling capability reduces quality. Declining quality erodes trust. Eroding trust worsens recruitment. Weakened recruitment further reduces capability. Institutions expand bureaucracy to compensate. Procedural load increases. Quality declines further. The system enters a downward trajectory that cannot be reversed without rebuilding capability, something that requires generational time horizons. The most advanced expression of quality decline is the collapse of long-term planning. High-capability societies undertake multi-decade infrastructure, scientific, and strategic projects. Low-capability societies cannot manage long-time horizons. They focus on short-term crises, symbolic initiatives, and reactive politics. As capability declines, foresight collapses. A society that cannot plan loses the ability to maintain its own complexity. In the next chapter, we examine coordination failure, the breakdown of interinstitutional coherence as declining capability, rising fragmentation, and mounting bureaucratic load cause systems that once cooperated seamlessly to misalign, obstruct one another, and accelerate civilizational decline.